Hey guys, thanks so much for joining me. I, of course, am your host, Sassy Steffi, and this is Talking Sass. And I'm so excited to have you guys along for the journey today because I have such an amazing guest. But before we get started, it's the beginning of the month. So it is so important because this is the best time to join Patreon because it's the beginning of the month. You're going to get all of my fantastic members exclusives. And this month, I have so many great things planned. So don't miss out. Make sure you go to patreon.com/sassystephanie and become a member. Tiers start at only $2. So that's an amazing thing. You're going to get access to things that people on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook aren't going to have access to. So make sure you go and sign up. And also with it being the beginning of November, that means it's the beginning of the holiday season. Of course, we have American Thanksgiving coming up in a couple weeks. And we also have Christmas and all of the holidays around there. And then we have 2021. It is coming up so fast. This year, even though it's been pretty horrible for most of us, has flown by. At least it has for me anyway, I should say. But I'm excited because 2021 hopefully is going to be that fresh new restart that everybody needs. And hopefully COVID will see itself out the door and we'll be able to get back to life as we knew it in 2019 because 2020 has been rough for a lot of people. So let's just hope that things start turning for the positive, you know? Now on to today's guest. He is a former WWE superstar and former personal ring announcer for Alberto Del Rio. And if that doesn't give it away, well, then I guess you haven't been watching WWE in the last 10 years. Of course, I'm talking about Ricardo Rodriguez, also known as Jesus. And I'm so excited because I got him on Talking Sass right before he leaves for Egypt. Now, when I recorded my episode, which I do record a couple of weeks ahead of time, he wasn't able to announce it quite yet because he was waiting on a couple of details still to come through. But he's going to go to Cairo, Egypt to help mentor a bunch of students over there for wrestling. So I'm so excited that I was able to get him on before he takes off because that might be a little bit hard scheduling wise across the world there to get him on the show. So I'm very excited to introduce to you guys Jesus Ricardo Rodriguez. Hey everybody, welcome to Talking Sass. I am so excited today because I have a former WWE superstar with me and I'm really excited. And I saw a couple interviews that he did and I have to make sure that I do this intro with heart and pride. So without further ado, help me welcome Jesus Ricardo Rodriguez.
Really good, really good. And I like that you did your research on that one because in the past when people do the whole intro thing, I always stop them, as you said, because we want to give it a little something, right? We want to make it a little something special. But you got it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, even if I know somebody, which I've known you for quite a bit of time, which we'll get into, but I always want to do my research because there might be things I don't know. And I didn't know that you would stop me. And I'm like, no, I want to make this special and give him the nice introduction that he deserves that he always did on WWE TV. So, I got to roll my R's. I'm not as good as you are, but I got to roll my R's. My Spanish class from like second grade kicking in. So how are you doing?
Good. I'm here in Los Angeles, California. I know you're over there on the other side of the country, or of the coast. So you're a couple hours ahead of me. But and it's just the sun is barely coming down here. On Sunday now today. I don't know when you're gonna air it, but Sunday. And just here at home. Not much of anything going on because of COVID. Outside of just training, and that's about it. No shows here yet. But hopefully soon we can kind of get back to the groove of wrestling because I'm sure you miss it. I miss it. We all miss it. And like we spoke prior to this, we got that itch, and damn it, it's itching.
Well, I tell people all the time, I'm semi-retired because I don't know if you can ever actually like fully retire from wrestling because it's always there. It's always in your blood. And right now it's hard for everybody just because everybody wants to get out there and be doing what they love and have a passion for.
Yeah. It's definitely, I think I retired twice so far in the last 14 years, but I don't want to go on that Terry Funk type of deal where I retire every 2 years and then come back. Um, but no, and like you said, we never fully retire because we always want to be involved somehow.
Mm-hmm.
We invested so much time and sacrificed so much for this sport that it's hard just to say goodbye. And something always drags us back in. Whether we watch a match that like ignites us again, or somebody sends you a message that just kind of like hits you right in the warm spot, and you're like, no, I still got more left, and I want to keep going. Um, and for us, like I said before we went on, live, um, COVID was it for I know a lot of us. We were so used to wrestling, and we took it for granted, and then all of a sudden got taken away. And instead of having a show this on a weekend and then 2 shows, 3 shows, a full week, a full month, all of a sudden we have nothing. Um, so I know a lot of us felt it. I felt it. Um, and here we are. Like I'm ready for it to come back safely, of course.
Yeah.
But I'm ready for it to come back.
Definitely. Well, let's talk a little bit about your career. You said 14 years ago, so we're talking 2006.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
did you start in the mask or did you start without the mask?
No, I started in the mask. So I started backyard wrestling here in LA. Man, what was it, like 2000? Right after high school. So like 2004. Um, so I started doing the whole backyard thing, and then I found these guys here who had a ring, and they had like backyard wrestling shows. So then I joined them. And we would imitate exactly what we saw, like at the time on Impact on TNA. We used to imitate them move for move.
Mm-hmm.
But they had a boxing ring, but we didn't know any difference. And boxing rings are very different than wrestling rings. Boxing rings are stiff.
Yeah,
They
they're a
don't
lot
have.
smaller.
Yeah, not only that, but they don't have any spring in them.
Right.
So we learned how to bump, how to roll, all that stuff on a boxing ring. And then eventually, I eventually got trained and then went on. But yeah, I started with the mask. I started lucha libre first, straight Mexican lucha libre, and then eventually I transitioned to the American style. And 14 years later, here we are.
Well, you got started. So in 2006, you said your first professional match, right? Not
Yeah.
your backyard, but professionally. And
Yeah.
then you were signed to FCW in 2010. So 4 years, especially at that time, because now if you're a super indie star, you can pretty much get signed almost right away. Maybe not now in COVID, but let's say like a year or so ago.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. One thing that I noticed, and then obviously this is just an opinion, but it seemed like if you had a big online following, a social media following,
mhm.
you had an upper hand as far as getting noticed, because everything now is social media, everything is online. So if you had a strong social media following, you had an upper hand, uh, more so than other guys who didn't, as far as getting noticed.
Well,
Um,
I remember when I had one of my tryouts, the group that I was with was actually very blessed because we got to sit down with William Regal for like 2.5 hours in the
yeah,
stands, like before Raw. And he
yeah,
told us that he's like, if you want to get signed right now, get a social media following immediately.
yeah,
And I was
yeah,
like, that's more important than anything else. And he was like, yeah, that's
yeah,
the most important right now. And that was, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago.
yeah. And then something that and I've said it before in the past, it was all because of Zack Ryder. Zack Ryder was the whole reason why they were so into social media, and why everything now really with them. I mean, I'm sure it would have happened eventually. I'm
Right.
sure it would have happened eventually, but it was because of Zack Ryder, because of what he did online and with his YouTube channel, and then he made his own music video. He made a song. He got himself over, so it's all because of Zack.
I loved at that time when he was doing all that. I was loving that. And you said Zach got himself over. And I remember one time in one of those videos, he was climbing a fence and he was struggling.
Mhm.
And they're like, Zach, what are you trying to do? He's like, I'm trying to get over. And I was just, it's, using the technically like the backstage,
Yeah, yeah,
lingo and stuff like that. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm dying. These were
yeah,
hilarious. I remember those. Those are great.
yeah.
But
It's all because of Zack.
yeah, but those 4 years that you were wrestling professionally, but not in WWE, not before you got signed,
Mm.
what was that like? How did you get signed? Because like you said, at that time, the internet wasn't
We were
Twitter,
still on
your
MySpace. We were
yeah.
still using MySpace. Uh, no, I mean, it was all the MySpace and YouTube. It was just messaging promoters, and uh, I mean, obviously, I had to learn the American style, and then working on the left side versus the right side, and
Mhm.
then learning a whole another terminology. It's like learning a different language. Um, but I was very persistent, and was passionate about, like, I would keep bugging. I was stubborn. I was, and still am. Uh, I was very stubborn about sending messages to promoters, and like when I messaged Chikara that I wanted to be there, and then they would tell me, "Well, send me some stuff." So I did. Um, Same thing when I first went to Europe. I messaged the promoter and I sent him some stuff, so whole thing, and then they basically told me, "Fly yourself out here, and then we'll take care of the rest." And sure enough, I did. I took those big leaps of faith, and then I flew myself out to Pennsylvania. I flew myself out to Europe, and then thankfully it worked out.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many people. I don't know if it was the same for the males, but when I would say probably around the same time, 2011, 2012-ish, there was a lot of girls that were flying themselves to Japan, and some of the veteran
Mhm.
girls were actually pretty upset that they were doing that because they're like, you need to earn your
Right, right,
spots to
right,
go
right.
there. So was that the same for the males?
Maybe I don't know because I mean it might have been. It might have been. I always took like I don't want to say like a lone wolf approach because that's BS. Because nobody ever does this alone. But I was always kind of a loner. I had like a small circle, and
Mm-hmm.
then we kind of did our own thing on the side. So I never stuck with the cliques per se.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though we had a little circle of outcasts, because it was the same thing when I was in high school. I was part of the social outcast group. Um, we kind of did our own thing, and then respectfully, because that's a big thing that and we'll get into it later. That's a big thing that I don't see a lot now is respecting those that came before you.
Mm.
Um, but I mean, respectfully, I did my own thing. I didn't go where everybody else was going to um, fit in per se, or um, if somebody said, "Hey, fly yourself out," and then do this, and then I'll take care of the rest, which I did. I will fly myself out, but I was very confident of what I can do and of my wrestling. I was very, very confident. And
Mm-hmm.
sure enough, it paid off because once I went to Europe the first time around, every single time that I went after that, they flew me out. They paid me very well. And I got booked in other countries on those loops.
Mm-hmm.
So it worked out. Um, but the very first step was flying, getting myself out there, getting noticed. But like I said, I was confident of what I could do.
Well, I think in wrestling, you have to be confident because if you don't, try to advance yourself and don't have a certain bit of cockiness about you or, aggression to not aggressive, I guess, but like pursuing something because you said you were
Right.
always messaging people, you're not going to get anywhere because that's what the independence is all about. You have to get your name out there. You have to do these things in
Mm-hmm.
order to get people to look at you. And then if you're on certain stages, like you said, Chikara, Europe, then other people are looking at you as well and you start to really get your name out there then.
Yeah, you network. Once you're there, you
Yeah.
have to network. You have to socialize. Which that was another thing that was weird for me because, like I said, in high school, I was such a loner. Um, but
Aren't
it
we
also
all?
helped. No, but it also helped because I actually was a car salesman. In my early years of wrestling, I used to sell cars for Toyota, so I bought myself my own car. Um, so that kind of like broke me out of a shell. And then once I started working into, well, for some of you guys I know, I used to work in the adult industry. Not, I mean, behind the scenes. Um,
Yeah, I got to be very specific there.
yeah, behind the scenes. But I had to deal with a lot of people, so you have to go and be social. You have to deal with clients and this and call this company, call this GM or whatever. Um, so you learn to socialize. So and also that kind of helped out once you go into wrestling because you have to socialize.
Hmm.
Uh, so that helped a lot too. Once I got out there and I got to meet promoters, I got to meet other wrestlers, I got to meet different people, and you network. I pressed something. Sorry.
It's all
Sorry.
right.
So that helped out. But like I said, it was all just the confidence and basically the whole thing of faking it till you're making it. That's what I did when I got signed with WWE. Um,
Go ahead.
no, that's
Oh,
pretty
okay.
much it.
Speaking of being signed with WWE, I mean, you've had like some major accomplishments. I mean, in my mind, maybe you see them differently because you were there, but like you got to be in some iconic matches. You got to do some pretty iconic things. You've taken some amazing finishers that like everybody and their brother would probably dream to have taken. What's your favorite moment from your time there at WWE?
I always see my first WrestleMania was definitely special at the Georgia Dome, um, because a year prior we were in Arizona for WrestleMania, and I worked Dragon Gate USA. I worked 2 shows for Dragon Gate USA, and then one of my friends that was there had a spare ticket, so um, no, I didn't go to WrestleMania. No. We ended up not going. We just went to Dragon Gate, and then we just kind of like went bar hopping afterwards. Um, but we were there in Arizona, in Phoenix, and then the following year, a year later, I was in WrestleMania. I was in one of the main events, so that was always pretty cool. And it had to be with Edge. It was Edge, Alberto, Brodus, myself, Christian. And I've said in the past, what got me into American pro wrestling was a TLC match at WrestleMania 17 with the
Mm-hmm.
Hardy Boys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian. That's what got me into American wrestling. So to have my first WrestleMania moment with them, with Edge and Christian, was amazing. Was amazing. Um, that was pretty cool. That's something I'll always remember. I mean, my first, being in the Royal Rumble was cool. Um, Dying like every other pay per view was cool.
I have a couple of questions I'm going to ask you about specific matches too. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, because I remember like Michael Hayes would like every pay per view he would come in and just look at me and then just say, "How are we gonna kill you this month?" And then he would come up with some weird ass ideas. We're gonna throw you off of this, or we're gonna throw you into this. We're gonna do this to you. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, with a smile, but I was like, oh, okay,
Uh,
okay.
I've been in situations like that too. There was one time I was working Dragon Gate. I was just managing, and it
Mm-hmm.
was in a match against Tommy Dreamer. And somebody comes over to me and they're like, "So you're gonna take the pile driver?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, sure, no
Mm-hmm.
problem. I don't take pile drivers. I don't trust them." And then Tommy comes up to me and he's like, "Yeah, so you're gonna take the pile driver and we're gonna do this spot." And I was like,
Oh,
"Yes,
okay.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, of course." And that's one of the only pile drivers I've ever taken, and
Yeah,
I made sure that like I sold it and got out of the way because there was other stuff going on.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
it was like, yeah, there's some times where people throw some stuff at you and you're like, what are you
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah. And I was lucky that I was there with people that I trusted. So
Yeah.
I mean, even though like I was still nervous, but I mean, I trusted them that I was gonna be okay, and sure enough, thankfully, I was okay afterwards. But that was cool.
Well, I want to tell a story. I know I told you this earlier, but
Mhm.
I think the story's fun, so I want to share it. So
Sure.
I was going to broadcasting school somewhere around 2011, 2012. And
Hmm.
you and Alberto Rio were doing media in the Cleveland area. And one of the guys that I was in class with was an intern on the morning show that you guys came into, one of them, because I know you guys on media day do like 50
A
things
lot.
before, yeah, before you
At
get to the
4 in the
arena
morning.
that day. Oh man, I couldn't imagine. But he comes to me that day in class and he's like, "Oh my God, Stephanie." And I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" Like he was like really like intense. And I was like, "Yeah, what's up, Ray?" And he was like, "Ricardo Rodriguez says he knows you." And I was like, "Okay." Like, yeah. And at that time we hadn't met, but we had known each other through friends.
Hmm.
And but he was so intense and it was so funny just the way like he came in, he was like, "Oh my God, a WWE person knows who you are." And I was like, okay, the wrestling world isn't that big. Like, I'm glad you're a little starstruck and you had a good time this morning talking to them. That's cool. And that's even cooler that he like mentioned to you that he knows me. So that's
Hmm.
awesome because I'm sure he probably was like, "Oh my God, I love you guys," when he was there. So
No, and it's a small world. It really is a small world when it comes to wrestling. It's kind of like that whole what's that, like the 7 stages of Kevin Bacon or something. The
yeah.
seven whatever separations.
Yeah, the 7 degrees of separation of Kevin
That thing.
Bacon.
That thing. Yeah, that
Yeah.
that thing. Somehow we're all connected in one way or another.
Yeah, and there's some crazy connections through wrestling that you get to be like, "Oh, I
Hmm.
know this person because of this or
Yep.
this or this."
Yep.
it's fun though. But when you figure out how you know somebody through somebody else, it's always good times.
It really is. It really is. And but you know what? Like, and also throughout this whole journey, I've met a lot of great people. Some that I wish to forget, but for the most part, like I've met a lot of great people, and it's really cool. Also, when you think about how we're all so different, but the one thing that brought us all together was wrestling. And then you form bonds. And it's like you become brothers and sisters, and it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool little thing. Like you want to kill each other from time to time, but like if somebody were to attack another fella, like I'll defend them, of course, because we're all brothers in arms.
Right. And there's a girl that I was wrestling on a show one time, and it was intermission or after the show, I can't remember, and she was filming something for her YouTube show.
Mm.
And there was another girl who jumped her, and then another girl who came in and jumped her at the same time, and I'm like, I can't just sit here, like
Yeah, yeah,
that's my friend. So I had to jump over the merch table and go and like bring, because I knew there was beef between these girls anyway. So I
that's
pulled the
crazy.
one girl that had nothing to do with it, that was just jumping in because it was her friend, and I pulled her
Mm.
down to the ground. I was like, no, this is not how this is going down. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not gonna try to like protect my friend, because I mean we're going to be wrestling later, so that would just
yeah,
look
yeah,
weird. But I'm not gonna just let like people jump in on her when it's not part of their business anyway. Like if you have beef
yeah.
with
That's
somebody,
crazy.
then take it out. But to jump
That's
somebody
insane.
that, yeah, stupid in my
No,
opinion
it's
anyway.
happened. It's happened on my end too, where like I've been around somebody I'm not a big fan of. I don't like him that well, but
Hmm.
he got into a little bit of an argument with somebody, and I mean, I'm not gonna let him. Whether he could hold his own or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wasn't gonna wait and find out if he couldn't, so I had to step in. Because like I said, like we're brothers, and eventually we had to work together. So like hopefully that kind of helped out when we wrestled. Um, but yeah, like we're brothers, so we're sisters, we're family in a weird kind of a messed up way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you talked earlier about being social outcasts, and I remember in high school, like I was bullied all sorts because I was wearing my Stone Cold Steve Austin
Mm.
shirts and the Rock shirts, and people were like, "Oh, this girl likes wrestling. That's
Yeah, yeah.
And so like, and then I became a wrestler, and then it's so funny because I remember like these kids making fun of me, and now on Facebook they're like, "Oh, you got to hang out with so and so," or "Oh,
Hmm.
you wrestled so that's so cool," and I'm like, I got no love for you, so just
Yeah, yeah,
back
yeah, yeah.
on up.
Yeah.
You made my life hell in high school, and now you want to be friends? I'm
No, that's a like a fun little thing too. That looking back now that you mention it, how in high school there was a lot of folks that never give me the time of day, and then all of a sudden they see you on TV, and then you get those random messages. Hey man, how are you? How you been? I've missed you.
yeah. You don't know anything about me except I'm on TV now.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back to WWE because, like I said, there was several matches that me personally, I was like, I love them, or there were certain bumps that you took. And the first one was in December of 2011,
Mm.
and it was the TLC triple threat match with
In Baltimore.
Alberto Del Rio, Miz, and Punk. And you
Yeah.
took the big old dive off the ladder through the table.
So here's the story behind that. So early on in the day, Michael Hayes, we're coming up with the whole structure of the match and whatever, and then Michael Hayes, so I think it was Michael Hayes who brought it up. Oh yeah, Ricardo, you're gonna go up there and you're gonna, because I think there was like a previous match where it was, I think, like Kane, Edge, Del Rio, Ray, and it was a ladder match, and then yeah, and then I'm trying to climb up, and then Kane grabs me and then chokeslam me from the ladder. Um, so they kind of want to revisit something like that. So when he mentioned that I was gonna go climb up there and whatever, I thought, okay, well they're gonna bump me off of it or pull me down or something. And then he goes, oh yeah, and they're gonna tip you over, and you're gonna go through a table on the outside. I was like, oh, okay, okay. And then so they're like, all right, so they put the crash pad, and now I know you've seen it, that big ass crash pad that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So they put it in the outside, and then they bring a ladder in. They're like, all right, so get up there, and we're gonna tip you over.
No adrenaline.
uh,
Oh, no.
yeah, yeah. So like, because in my head, no, exactly, perfect, yeah, exactly. In my head, I'm like, no, we just. I don't know if this is one of the things you practice. You just do it.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, Edge and Christian were there. I don't remember why, but they were there. And then so as they see me go up there, I'm sure they can see in my face that I was kind of like shit scareless. Um, uh, so then Edge, I think it was Edge or Christian, one of those two. And then he's like, whatever you do, just ride it. Don't jump. Because if you jump, you're gonna kick it from under you and you're just gonna fucking eat it.
Mm.
Um, so sure enough, so they start tipping it over, and what does my dumbass do? I jump. So I kicked it from under me. And then I went straight out onto the ropes, and I just did one of those like weird little tumbly thingies. Because my feet caught the rope on the way down.
Mm.
But I landed on the pad, so it was there. And then so then Michael Hayes, he's like, oh, you know what, we'll just scratch it. But at the time I was like, no, hold on, I got this. So then I had to go up there and do it a few times till eventually, get it right, so they can trust me to do it. But yeah, that was the whole thing. It's like, just write it, just write it down, don't jump, just write it. So eventually when the time happened, I remember I went up to Miz right before we went out. I went up to Miz and Punk. I was like, I trust you guys, but just let me just tip it over. Don't toss it. Just tip it over. And then Punk just looks at me. He's like, I got you. We got you. You're fine. So sure enough, so I set the ladder because I put the ladder how far I needed it to be, and then eventually the moment happens, and you just when you take those weird bumps, you just kind of close your eyes and hope for the best.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you land, and you're like, okay, that was it. Well, eventually they had a camera up on top that had like the view, the downward view.
Yeah, the bird's eye view.
Yeah, and then eventually, so I found out because one of my knees was bruised as hell. It turns out I missed the first table, and I ended up on all my weight on the second table. And then my knee clipped the first table. And then I remember that night I was rooming with Mason Ryan. And then he's a big dude. Anyway, so he kept telling me that I couldn't let him sleep because I kept moaning in pain because my knee was swollen as hell. So I couldn't walk straight for a good like 2 weeks because it was just bruised.
Mm.
But that was, yeah, looking back, it was fun because I know that was probably this is just me tooting my own horn. I think that was like the highest reacted bump, I guess, out of the whole card, out of the whole show. So that was a little bit of a good job, me.
Yeah, but like I said, that's one of the iconic moments that like I remember from your career. Like I just think back and I'm like, oh, I got to ask him about that one because that was a big thing. I mean, especially we're talking managers since probably the 90s haven't been like a big thing or not that you were necessarily a manager because you were the ring announcer, you were doing other things, but you were always by Alberto Del Rio side. So it's like to see somebody who's not established as necessarily a worker or a wrestler going up and taking that kind of bump makes it even bigger. Plus, everybody wants to see you get your ass kicked because you're the person that's interfering all the time.
And you know what I think also helped out too, because at the time the other managers, for the most part, were female, and they will never. And I mean now, especially in WWE, like the women are never going to get hit by the men. I mean, I know an independence is different.
Yeah.
But because like the other top heel was Vicky, at the time, and she'll never get punched or kicked or whatever by one of the males. So I was that guy that would get punched and kicked and whatever. So it was kind of cool. It was fun because like you said earlier, like I got to take some pretty cool finishers and moves from people that I grew up watching. So that was cool. There was definitely a few that I marked out like a little bitch.
Which one was your favorite that you took? Or
the first one was Ray. That was the very first one because that was the very first finish that I got was Ray. And then I mean, for me, I grew up in Lucha Libre and I knew who Ray was my entire life. So, so to have our first feud with Ray was awesome. And then to take the 619 like almost every night was pretty cool. And then especially like the first night, because I've never taken one from him. So, I mean, I've taken one from folks before, and they always pull back, but Ray doesn't pull back. He just swings his legs. And another thing that Ray has that nobody else has are knee braces, which those things hurt.
Yeah.
So the very first 619 that I took, I wanted to be a man. And then I kept telling myself, don't put your hands, don't put your hands, don't put your hands, don't be a bitch. Um, so I took him face first, and then his knee brace caught me right in the face. Uh, Eventually, I learned with time to,
Yeah, protect yourself always.
yeah, yeah, because they kind of hurt. Um, but there was that. I mean, obviously working with Kane and getting the spear by Edge, and uh, working with Jericho was a lot of fun. And Randy, I think the most finish that my English is no good sometimes.
You're doing quite fine.
The move that I took the most was probably the RKO. That's probably the one I took the most. Yeah, or Sheamus's boot. That's probably the second one. But those two were the most uh, the ones I took the most.
Hey everybody, just wanted to take a minute to tell you about my friend and big supporter of the show, apparel line Ruddy Lad. My wardrobe is filled with these t-shirts. They're so comfortable and I am not the only one who feels this way. You can find celebrities enjoy them too. Everyone from WWE's Big E, Sheamus, Ronda Rousey and Travis Brown, UFC icon Chuck Liddell and Conor McGregor's training team, to the Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Bono from U2, Phil X from Bon Jovi, and actors too, such as Chad Michael Murray, and so many more. Ruddy Lad was also featured on Dragon's Den on Netflix. So head over to ruddylad.com, help support them, and make sure raise some proper mischief. Well, speaking of Sheamus, how did that whole segment come about when you came dressed out as Sheamus? Like, did they come that morning like, we're going to put some Kool-Aid in your hair and dress you as Sheamus, put some white Casper-like tights on and go?
So, they do a lot of things sometimes where they don't tell the other people or the other folks what you're doing. Like for instance, that whole thing with Sheamus, they didn't tell Sheamus. They knew we were doing a promo together. He had the promo, but when they gave him the promo, they didn't tell him I was gonna come out looking like him. So he didn't see me until we were in Gorilla. Uh, so Sheamus just let out a big "you fucking." I don't know. He just let out a big "f you." And then we took a picture, which is somewhere out on the internet now. It's somewhere out there.
I'm gonna try
We
to
took a
find
picture
that.
together before we went out, where we're in Gorilla standing next to each other, and it was cool because they had asked him for his boots because he had two. He always had one that he carried, and he had an extra pair that he had at the big box where all like the jackets are. And I'm sure you've seen it.
Yeah.
So
I've
he
seen
has
him.
an extra pair there. So they grabbed those, and then I had to wear them because they have lifts. Um, but yeah, they didn't tell Sheamus until we were out there, so that was cool. The same thing happened with when they dressed us up as Zeb and Swagger. They didn't tell us Swagger or Zeb until we were out there, because they wanted to get a genuine reaction.
Right.
Which
That's
is
so fun.
Yeah, yeah.
And now you mentioned earlier about females and males not really mixing it up, but you had one mixed tag match that was really fun. And I want to ask you another question about that one. So you have Layla and Santino against you and Beth Phoenix. Whose idea was it for the Justin Bieber shirt?
Okay, so this is how this happened. So we're coming up with the match. And then they gave me like two really like skin tight shirts. Because they were coming up with some idea, whatever. Eventually the match happens, and then they rip it off. And then I don't know why, for whatever reason, I was like, wouldn't it be funny to have like a Twilight or like a Justin Bieber shirt? Because I do this shit all the time. Like I just say stupid stuff, and then it just goes, okay. And then they're like, yeah, I forgot who the writer was, because it was one of the writers that mentioned it. And I was like, oh, if we had a Twilight or a Justin Bieber shirt, it'd be funny. And then they went out and they got a Justin Bieber shirt. That's kind of what happened. I just opened my mouth and and it happened. But that was so much fun because I love Beth. Beth is great. I'm such a big fan of hers, and Layla too. Because I used to work with Layla a lot before the shows. And Santino's great. Santino's like a legitimately funny as hell guy. He's so quick with his comebacks. You can tell him anything, and he'll just be boom right there. So that was a lot of fun. I had so much fun with that one, and then I got to put in a lot of ideas into that match that they thankfully they kept in. So I was very appreciative of that because those are my ideas, and then we got to do it on TV, and I was happy. Um,
Well, you can
yeah, so that
genuinely,
was favorite.
yeah, I was about to say, you can genuinely tell when people are actually having a lot of fun or if
Yeah,
they're just kind of going through the motions. And with that one,
yeah,
I could, especially if you are in the business to begin with, you can really kind of pinpoint these little things. And that one, I could just tell, like, the way you were having a blast with that match and then the afterwards ripping the shirt
mm,
and everything, it looked like fun. So
it
you
was
knew
fun.
you
It was a
wanted
lot.
to be there.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I forget where we were, but when they came up, so technically, the tag team of myself and Beth are still undefeated. Just saying.
Well, I don't think Beth's doing any more in ring action ever again, is she? Well, I mean,
No, but
again,
like you said, you never fully retire.
yeah, exactly. So who knows? Maybe you guys could meet up and do another something
Yeah,
and
that'd be
still
great.
remain undefeated. So another match that I had that I wrote down that I thought was, I don't know whose idea it was, but I thought it was genius, is the last man standing match, Alberto Del Rio and
Mm,
Big Show. And to me, I never saw anything done like this before, but you duct taped Big Show's feet to the
yeah, yeah,
ropes. How do you go? I mean, I met him once and his hand, like when he shook my
yeah.
hand, went up to like my elbow.
Yep.
So I can only imagine how gigantic his feet would be to try to duct tape to the ropes.
We're doing the duct tape thing, and actually, because we did it in rehearsal just to see how quickly I can do it,
Yeah.
and I mean, it worked out. We were fine, but then we actually, when we actually went to and do it, where were we? I don't know where we were, but when we actually did it live, the tape kept ripping. Um,
Oh.
so like I would like stretch it out and it would rip, and I was like, ah, shit. So I know there's a few times where they had to like maybe cut angles. I think
Mhm.
because I've only seen it once before, and I think they kept cutting angles because like the tape kept ripping. Um, but that was fun. And then they actually had another last man standing in Miami when Del Rio won the world heavyweight title the first time around when he
Mhm.
was a babyface. Yeah, it was a world heavyweight. Um, that was a lot of fun too. All those matches were fun. Uh, and Big Show is such a big teddy bear. He's such a good dude. He would throw his fits every now and then, but he was such a good dude. He was very open to ideas, and a
Mhm.
lot of those guys are because it makes their lives a lot easier too.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm sure.
yeah, so they were all of those guys were so open to ideas, and I mean it's not like we came in with something saying something completely dumb or stupid. It was for the most part stuff that would accentuate something of theirs. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if you did this and then you caught the reel with that? Like same with like Randy. Randy was always cool with our ideas because we would put him over.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. When I was wrestling, I was the heel, so at least 98% of the time. So like I would always be like, "Hey, let's do this and this is what you do to me." Or if I had my
Mhm.
manager with me, I'd be like, "You'll do this to her, she does
Yeah,
this to
yeah,
you, but then you get to come up on her." And they're like, "You want us to do that?" And I'm like, "Yes. Like
yeah,
this is what I want. Like I'm going under. I'm going to at least make it look good."
yeah, yeah. And have fun,
Uh,
like you said, and have fun with it. Have fun with
yeah.
it. And then what I've come to learn too with that was if I give them ideas for them, they're more than likely willing to do something for you.
Mhm.
So they're more open to be okay with something that'll put yourself over. Um, so like and it's wrestling's a give and take. You scratch your back, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine type of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So it always helped out. So it was definitely pretty cool.
Awesome. So then you released in 2014, but in 2015, I think you had a pretty cool opportunity. You got to go over and be a mentor to a lot of the kids coming up in Great Khali school in India. How was India?
That was a lot of fun. That was that. I don't think I realized what I got myself into when I first agreed to it. Um, I'll admit, granted, it's a little different now, but because I don't drink anymore. But when I did agree to it, uh, it was after a night of going out with a couple of buddies. So when I got contacted about going over there, I was like, yeah, sure, of course. Um, and then when I finally got some rest and I woke up, I was like, what? um, but then once I got over there, man, it was such a beautiful experience, and then something that I've always appreciated about being there was how appreciative and how much they love being at training, and they realized how much the parents sacrificed for them to be there,
Mm-hmm.
and they never took anything for granted. I mean, granted that they probably hated a lot of the drills that I gave them, but they did them. They never complained, not to me at least, but they did them. And then they were always there, and then it all had a big payoff. I convinced Khali to let me run shows at the academy to get the guys to get accustomed to wrestling in front of a crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And then right before we left, we got contacted by WWE and Impact that they wanted to do something with us. Um, so once I left, they got in touch with Impact. They got in touch with WWE. Some of my guys did tryouts right before I left with WWE in Delhi. We had a major tour, a 3-show tour in India. That the first show drew, I want to say like 23,000. The second show was about 52,000, and then the last one was only because of weather, only because it was raining, was about 11,000 or
Mm.
so roughly. Um, and then some of the guys some of those guys are signed to WWE, whether it's in Orlando or to NXT UK. Um, one of the guys, one of the guys who went after me, who was actually one of Santino's guys, Daryl Sharma,
Mm-hmm.
is he's one of the referees now.
Yeah, I know
So
Daryl.
there's yeah. So a lot of those guys are within the company now, and it's something that we started. Um, and it's something that was a cool experience that nobody can ever take away from us. Um, and I have something similar coming up that I don't want to jinx it yet, but
Right.
by the time you put this out, I should get all my info and then it'll be up. Um, but I got a cool another little experience similar to this coming up. So I'm excited about that, and to get to do it all over again, I'm excited.
And I know that like back when you were in India, like I saw you would post drills with some of those kids like over there, and you were teaching them not just the WWE style, you were teaching them the lucha libre style. You were teaching them all sorts of different drills. It was awesome, and like I'm pretty sure you still kind of think of those as your like kids, right?
Yeah, they're my kids, and I still keep in touch with them. They still message me. They forget the time difference, so they'll have a habit of calling me on WhatsApp like at 3 in the morning. Um, so they forget about that, but they've gotten better at it. But yeah, they still I still talk to them. Um, like when some of these guys got signed, they called me right away and they were crying, and then I cried with them, and because like I said, I saw how much they sacrificed, and I saw how much they put in, how much effort they put in, like the living conditions over there, even at the school. I mean, um, we take a lot of things for granted here. We really do. Um, and then for them to come to the U.S. and now live in like in well for them what they consider like a very beautiful apartment, and for us it's just like, oh, it's just a regular whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But for them it's something that they never imagined, to live over here from a small little town in India. Um, and then now they can send money to their parents, and that's pretty cool. That's it makes a lot of things worth it. Uh,
Yeah.
so like I said, I have a similar opportunity coming up, and I'm excited about it. Uh, so I get to redo it all over again in a different country. So I'm excited about that.
Oh, that'll be awesome. And I mean, I know you say you don't want to jinx it, but with COVID restrictions and everything going on, will you be able to get there
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
timely fashion?
We've already gone like worked out all the custom stuff, and we've already worked out all that stuff. I'm just waiting on my itinerary.
Okay,
Um,
good.
so that's the only thing I'm waiting on, just my itinerary. Because I don't want to get excited until then.
Oh, definitely. You can never, like you said, with COVID, we took a lot of things for granted. You're like, oh, I have 1, 2, 3 shows this week or
Yeah,
this
yeah,
month, whatever. And then all of a sudden it was gone. So you
yeah.
don't want to count too much on something and then something else happen. Who knows what? Knock on wood that
Exactly.
nothing happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I know that you in 2017, you said that you were done wrestling because you said you retired a couple of times, that you were only going to mentor and teach. Is that
Mm.
something that you find you have more passion in, is the teaching, or do you feel like wrestling is like you being in front of a crowd is still equal with that?
I have it's like this weird thing, because even in WWE, like they would call me for they would actually call me on my phone, on the phone, on my days off, and they would tell me, hey, we have this show coming up, or we have this match between, I'm just throwing two names out there, let's just say, I don't know, Damien Sandow and Jamie Noble. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. Think of a finish. I'm like, okay. So then the day of the show would come and they're like, hey, what you think about? And I would tell them ideas. And more times than none, they would go with the idea that I gave them. And it happened a lot. So I used to do that with Alberto's matches. I would like pitch ideas and then they would go with it. The match that Edge and Del Rio had at WrestleMania, like I came up with a lot of the spots and they just put it together to make it make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty cool to see some of the stuff that I gave him, some of the ideas that I gave him, and put him to use. So it's kind of cool too when I help out backstage, when I help produce or whatever, and I see those ideas come to life. So it's kind of like I can be, and granted, it all depends on the people that are doing it too, because I
Mm-hmm.
can give somebody the script, but if we have shitty actors, that movie's gonna suck.
Right.
Um, so I get a big kick out of that. I get a big kick out of guys, start from somewhere and then they elevate themselves through training, and then they become something much bigger, much better, and then they go off and then they leave the nest, and then they go make a big name for themselves, and that's pretty cool for me as well because you feel like a proud parent.
Yeah.
It's like with this, like for instance, like guys from India, not that they're in WWE now or over in the UK, um, guys that I've helped, because even then, like I was helping folks when they had their tryouts. When I was still in Orlando, they would come to me, or even if they were already signed at the PC, they would come over to 2.0 where I was teaching, because they wanted some extra ring time,
Mm-hmm.
and they knew that I was there, so they would go there because I was there. So it's kind of cool. It's a cool little feeling. It's a cool little feeling of feeling appreciated, I guess.
Definitely.
Um, and I think I enjoy that a little more than actual being in ring,
Mm-hmm.
in front of the camera. Especially now that I'm getting older and my body's all beat up. I've done a lot of stupid bumps that throughout my years that I'll wake up in the morning. I'm like, why am I sore? And then I go back and I have like one of those like weird mental flashbacks. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's why. That's probably why. That's why my neck is sore. That's why my back is all messed up. That's when like this is why my fingers all broken. Um,
Mm.
so no, I think
I
I
can't
like a
remember.
little
I got
more.
that one.
Yeah, yeah. So I know you can't tell because I have to put them back side to side, but this one's got dislocated in India, so it's all
Mm.
swollen versus like that one. I'm not flipping you off. It's just it's a middle finger. Um, like this one happened in India during a match. It broke. I don't feel anything on it. Um, but wrestling.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I appreciate more being behind the scenes. I do. I love that more. And then I would like to think that those guys and girls that have trained with me can see that. Hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
that passion that I have for it more so than I do when I'm in front of the camera. Um, because if I can help somebody else, achieve their goals, I'm all for it.
Definitely. So I know like with COVID going on, WWE has laid off a lot of their producers and stuff like that. Would that be a role that you would be open to with them?
If given, I mean, granted, I didn't leave on good terms per se, because I was very angry and bitter when I asked for my release. I wasn't happy being there,
Mm-hmm.
and I know I said a lot of shit I probably shouldn't have. Well, no, let me take it back. I regret how I said things.
Okay.
Uh, I don't necessarily take back much of what I said because a lot of people that left after I did said exactly the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I regret how I said things. I should have taken a different approach. And that's obviously, hindsight is 2020. And I was angry. I was younger. I was upset. I had a substance abuse problem. Uh, so there's a whole lot of things that went into it.
Yeah.
But as they say in wrestling, don't never say never. So if the opportunity were to present itself, I would jump on it immediately. I would love to. Because like I said, I appreciate and I love being behind the cameras. I appreciate being an agent, a producer, a trainer, especially a trainer. I love that. It's what I've been doing for God knows how many years, and it's what I want to keep doing. So if they were to call, oh yeah, I'd love to.
Awesome. And I mean, you said like you had a substance abuse problem, there were other things going on. You were bitter about whatever was going on at that time. That's why you asked for your release. But I mean, like you said, you've gotten older, maybe you don't regret what you said, you just regret how you said it. But I mean, I think a lot of people would understand that, and knowing that the passion that you have for the business, maybe that could even go by the wayside, or hell, even AEW or Impact, maybe one of those two would be like, hey, let's, bring him on because he has a brain for the business. You never know.
I know for a fact that the guys at Impact are aware of me because uh, when I finished the whole thing with India, Impact went after it. They went there. Uh, for whatever reason, it didn't fully work out. That's on their side. That's on the
Hmm.
Khali and Impact side. I wasn't there anymore, but I know they went after it. So did WWE. Um, and I know a lot of the main guys on there follow me on Twitter, so they see my social media. Um,
Right.
so that's why, like, also for like the last several months, since I've gotten healthier and gotten better, uh, dealt with my demons or whatever, and like I'm trying to stay active and on a positive note.
Hmm.
So hopefully that'll be seen, and hopefully influence them to, hey, kind of like rethink the possibility of a position or something. But I know with what I have coming up, hopefully it'll spark a little bit more interest. Hopefully, I'll talk to you after about it.
Definitely.
Um, but yeah, I would love to if the offer were present itself.
So obviously we know you have this big secret that you're holding here that you can't really discuss because you want to wait till you have your itinerary.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but what else is going on in your world? Like I know you said you're training. There's obviously
mm,
not a whole lot of shows going on, especially after what happened at the collective. A lot of people now having COVID.
yeah, which
But
is
where
unfortunate.
yeah, definitely. Where can they find you if they do want to see you?
Well, I'm still. Well, currently I'm in Los Angeles. I was living in
Hmm.
Mexico City. I was living in Mexico City before this. I was working on a TV show. I came up here to visit family, and then COVID happened. So I kind of got stuck here. So for the meantime, I'm here in LA. For the meantime, uh, I'm still training. I'm teaching currently here. Myself, Rikishi, Rusev, Miro. We're trainers down here at Knox Pro in LA. We have a great set of guys there. We're only training like two or three at a time uh, per day, so it's slow, but it's something,
Hmm.
and it's keeping us busy. And that's all. That's it for now. Really, that's all we're doing right now. There's not much because of COVID,
It is.
but
It's very
hopefully soon.
difficult. It's
Yeah,
very
it really
difficult.
is. It really is. But like I said, once this whole thing passes, hopefully soon, we'll get our gears up and running, and we'll hopefully get back to the motion of things and move around.
Okay, great. Well, let's go ahead. Tell everybody where they can find you on social media so that if they don't follow you already, they can.
So if you want to follow me on Twitter, my thingy is still at RRWE. I have not changed it because I don't want to lose a check mark. On Instagram, it's at the letter J underscore Rodriguez 818. Snapchat, I use it rarely, but I'm still on it. It's the same thing as Twitter at RRWE. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm mostly on Twitter and Instagram, mostly on those two. More social on Instagram for sure.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much, Jesus, for being a part of the show. It's an honor to have you be a part. I'm glad that you appreciated my intro as well.
Of course,
And I
your
can't
check is in the
wait.
mail.
Yeah. I can't wait to have you on again, maybe to talk about your top secret project in the future.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, for everybody, thank you for checking out Talking Sass, and we'll see you guys next time. Wasn't that an amazing conversation with Jesus? I want to thank him again for coming on the show because, I mean, what an amazing opportunity to have him right before he goes to Cairo, Egypt. I'm so excited for you. Congratulations once again. I wish you all the best success and please come home safely. So that wraps up this episode of Talking Sass. Don't forget to follow all of my social medias. Of course, you should already know them. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, ratings, all of that. Make sure you do it. And we'll see you guys next time.